So welcome everyone to our webinar today, Beyond the Nest Egg, Feathering the Nest for Healthy Retirement. My name is Stacey Barter.
Announcing participant.
I'm going to be facilitating today's session. I've really been looking forward to today's session because we have a great lineup of speakers to explore this whole issue about healthy retirement. Rita Weeb, who is with CARP, A New Vision of Aging. We have Jill Zacharias from the city of Revelstoke, who's the social development coordinator there, and she's going to be sharing some of her experiences with age-friendly planning in Revelstoke. And Bob Dare is the host of a fabulous radio program in Prince George called Senior Moments, and he's also part of the Prince George Council of Seniors. So our three speakers are going to be sharing some different perspectives and experiences around healthy retirement, and very much looking forward to this today. So I work with BC Healthy Communities, and this series, which is called Citizen Series on Health Webinars, we co-host with our colleagues at Northern Health. And I want to invite my colleague Teresa Healy from Northern Health just to share a little bit of background about this webinar series. Many of you have participated in some of our other ones already, so you'll be familiar with it, but for those who are new, Teresa, can you just share a little bit about how this came to be and particularly why we were interested in this particular topic today?
Well, welcome everybody. I'm very pleased to welcome you on behalf of Northern Health. I don't know how many of you remember Margaret Mead's quotation about never doubt that a small group of committed individuals can change the world, for indeed it's the only thing that ever has. It really applies to this Citizen series. There were three women talking about what they could do for people in the North around their health with a little pot of money, and came up with the idea of the Citizen webinar series because all three of us had heard at different times and in different ways how much people in the North wanted to stay in touch. They wanted to know what were new resources. They wanted to learn from each other, and yet accessing that kind of education and that kind of training was often financially impossible and would visit sort of undue hardship on their community if they had to leave for the amount of time required to travel. So the idea for the Citizen webinar is that we can actually bring together people from very disparate regions and areas and places of work and places of interest to listen and learn together. And we've been able to bring onto our webinars absolutely
Announcing participant.
Absolutely amazing presenters, nationally, provincially, regionally. We always try to make sure that we've got speakers from our strength, that is rural, remote, and isolated, and, or as Dave Richardson always called them, our communities in the North, he always called them the string of pearls. So we always want to make sure we've got that perspective included. And all of the topics have been raised by various people that we talk to, the idea being that the webinars are really a way to help people become more active citizens, more active advocates and activists around healthcare issues. And it became very clear to us that the face of retirement is changing dramatically. Our service providers and our communities need to be aware of this. You've got baby boomers who are politically experienced moving into this new realm. And yet what we saw mostly was about financial matters. There's a lot of effort putting in to make sure that you've got enough money to live on, and that's not to say that's unimportant, but really what is retirement going to look like, and what sort of resources are there for people who are moving into retirement years themselves, or for service providers and communities who want to be able to respond to this growing need and this new need in a good way. So that's why we're here today.
Thanks so much, Teresa. I've very much been looking forward to today's session, largely because of the speakers that we have lined up. And as I was saying earlier, I think each of them has sort of a different perspective and experience to share about the issue and exploration of healthy retirement. So our structure for today, we're going to start with a speakers panel and hear from each of our three speakers. Each of them will have about 10 to 15 minutes to share a presentation with you, and they'll be sharing a PowerPoint presentation that you can follow along with. After each speaker, we'll have a few minutes just for a quick question and answer. Again, you can always use the chat feature at any point to type in any question and comments, and I'll be moderating those. And then following our speakers panel, we'll have a group guided discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, we really encourage this to be a space for dialogue. And as much as our speakers have a lot to share and offer, we know that you do as well. And many of you live this experience. For many of you, you work professionally in this area. So there's lots of rich experience to share, and we hope that you will contribute some of your stories and ideas and questions to the conversation today. So there's about 20 plus of us on the line. Just to get a sense of who's here and also to play a little bit with some of the bells and whistles that we have with this webinar technology, I'm going to just do a quick poll, and I'll remind you that at the top toolbar on the right-hand side, you'll see a little icon with a person with their hand up. And if you click on the drop-down menu, it's going to give you the option to raise your hand. So just to get a sense of who is on the line today, I know people are here for different reasons. Some of you are here because you're interested in this topic professionally. Maybe you work with seniors. Some of you are community planners, and you're concerned about making sure that your communities are healthy and vibrant places for people as they age. And some of you are here really because this is a personal exploration. I've had the opportunity to see the registration list and know a quick raising of hands, and again, you just click on the little raise hand icon. How many people on the line are health professionals or work within healthcare or community health? Raise your hand. We've got 5 people that have raised their hands saying they work specifically in the health field of our 20 plus folks on the line. How about folks from local governments? And you just unclick to unraise your hand there, yeah. So for local governments, I'm showing 4 people have raised their hands. So we've got 4 people from local governments. Great, so you can just unclick there. How about community-based organizations? We've got folks from community organizations on the line. So started with a couple. It's like election results coming in here. We've got 5 people. So quite an even split here. So about 5 people who are specifically involved with community-based organizations. How about provincial or federal government? Again, give you a couple minutes to either unraise your hand or raise your hand. Federal or provincial level government? We've got 3 folks there saying they work at that level of government. And then how many people are here out of personal interest, that you're personally interested in exploring the whole question of retirement, maybe thinking about your own retirement? So we've got about 7 people that are really here for personal exploration and personal interest. And then how about folks who are here because you specifically either work with seniors or work around planning for age-friendly communities? Got about 6 people there. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to have a sense of what people's interests are and who's on the line. And just want to reiterate, it's clear to me that there's some interesting and diverse perspectives that are here on the line. So I think we'll have some really rich conversation. So we're going to start today with our speakers panel. And I'm just going to pull up Rita's presentation to get us started. So Rita, I'm so thrilled that Rita's here to join us today. She is the ambassador and was also the chapter co-founder and past chair of one of the northern chapters of CARP, A New Vision of Aging. And CARP used to stand for, I believe it was the Canadian Association of Retired People, and now has a new vision and a new name, and I'll let Rita speak to that specifically. But we're so excited to hear a bit about the work Rita's doing around the North to support a new vision of aging and retirement. And sorry, Rita, we're just trying to get your presentation up here right now, and then we'll be good to go, and I'll turn it over to you. Not sure, we've got a bit of a delay here with the loading of your presentation. There we go.
There we go.
Well, welcome everybody, and my name is Rita Weeb, of course, and I'd like to take a minute just to explain a little bit about CARP. As Stacy mentioned, back in the old days, the acronym of CARP was the Canadian Association for Retired Persons. Today, CARP is in somewhat of a transition. I've heard a couple of different explanations. One is the Canada's Association for the 45 Plus, and another is CARP, A New Vision of Aging. So a little bit about me. I am currently a CARP ambassador. I am a CARP member, of course. I am the past chair and also the co-founder of Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 is from Quesnel to Smithers. Was most interesting when we first started up because once we became established as a chapter, we found we had over 400 members between Quesnel and Smithers. So that's an interesting little tidbit. The letters after my name, that is a recent designation. I've just recently completed a certification program on workshops, the New Start model. So that's a kind of an exciting thing for myself. I'd just like to say thanks to Teresa from Northern Health here and also to the BC Healthy Communities for putting this webinar together. Also like to say thanks to some special organizations who I will be talking about in the course of this presentation, who have given us the tools to establish a healthy retirement and a new vision of aging. Next slide. Now you'll notice on this next slide is a handful of seeds. Basically that handful of seeds is about what we have developed in the first half of our lives and deciding at this point of our life what we might want to grow and nurture for the second half of life. So it's about establishing a new normal for what is retirement for us. Also, you know, it's about planting those seeds of inspiration, recognizing and realizing the dreams that we had many years ago. It could have been something in the arts, something about more education, maybe writing a book, perhaps getting in the best shape of our life. I know a lady out of Vanderhoof that made it her goal to get in her best shape ever, and she actually went on to become a personal trainer and be certified in 50 plus personal training. Just want to tell you a little story about Brian Adams towards the end of my presentation here and how he fits into this picture of a new vision of aging. I'm going on to the next slide. So you will notice that there is the intertwined hands of collaboration and a firm foundation. Now, the new phase of retirement is basically about using information from a variety of resources, collaborating them with your own ideas, and applying to your life. Now, the resources I will be talking about, as I mentioned earlier, through the duration of this presentation. Research and development that I have been doing over the past several years has had very much to do with the CARP philosophy and the new vision of aging. Its advocacy, its corporate partners, they're hugely paramount in what I will be talking about. Next slide. Now, you will notice a nice, neat little pile of balanced stones, 7 stones to be exact, down in the bottom corner of the slide. Now, another source of influence that I've come across in my research and development is the International Council of Active Aging 7 Dimensions. Now, just want to go through the various points. Start at physical. So basically, it's important that as we go into this active aging process, healthy active aging, that we have a look at, you know, our diet, our exercise, perhaps addictions that we might have in our lives. Maybe they be tobacco, alcohol, prescription drugs, you know, whatever, just to have a look at that sort of thing and to sort of just get a healthy perspective on that. Next point is emotional. To educate oneself about what healthy and unhealthy emotions might be, and there's lots of organizations out there that can help with that. Next point, environmental. and environmental goes beyond the green concept. It could be something as simple in your own home and community as, assisting with, the green movement or the environment or the air, right up into what's going on in your own house, perhaps, allergens and maybe even toxic personalities that are in your life. Next point, spiritual. Spiritual is very different from religious or doctrine. So spiritual is a belief in something greater than oneself. So very important to sort of do a little research around that and what that one means to you. And then, of course, there's social. Social is, remaining somewhat engaged, prevents isolation, and just an important concept of staying connected with what's going on out there. So you'll notice that there is a gap between the 6th and the 7th, the intellectual and professional. That's the point where, if a person wants to remain in the workplace, that they sort of look at, well, what does reinventing oneself really look like? And do we want to do it? Basically, it could be about, wanting to remain in the workplace because that's where we've always been. Definitely, it won't be selling our hours the same as we always have. It's going to be somewhat more flexible. Maybe we want to be a consultant or start a business. Maybe it's just because we want to remain there and stay engaged. It's a very healthy place to be, and it's just something that we might want to do. We maybe want to maybe we want to just having a little moment here.
Sorry.
Okay, so we just want to remain engaged and do what we need to do. So there's 3 of us in this room, just to bear with us here. Next screen. Now this one, you'll notice it's yet another resource, and it's been around for a long time. And this one is the Aboriginal medicine wheel, and basically it's a resource as well. It is universally recognized. It's been around for generations, and of course applicable to all ages. They sort of look at the holistic balance of mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. I like the garden variety because it's alive, it's growing, it's green, it's a very good fit with this. Next slide. So just want to, I spoke earlier about my recent workshop certification, and I just want to draw your attention to the second point of about workshops. So these workshops draw from a collaboration of the tools that I've just previously spoken about. They, of course, are tailored to the individuals that maybe want to be involved in the workplace. They are very introspective, meaning that a person would, it's kind of a soul-searching kind of a thing. And, of course, it's very dependent on the group synergy of the individualities of the groups that are there. One of the more recent developments, along with my becoming a New Start workshop certified, is a pilot partnership with the Demano Renewal Center. They have provided a dynamic that allows workshops to happen, and they also have a Northern BC region, so that's been an interesting addition. And as I say, I am a CARP ambassador, but so very believe in the collaboration and the variety of resources that team together with information that we can, make a good firm foundation. Always keeping in mind that in doing these workshops, it can be tailored to industrial workplaces or employment programs of mature workers, perhaps health and or financial, just to name a few. And you know what? I forgot to move the next slide there. So yeah, that was just basically my contact information and phone number and that sort of thing. So I think we're just having some drinks of water in our room here. Next slide. So I just want to give some recognition to the people and the organizations that I've talked about, so information and bibliography. So just want to talk about CARP again. Now CARP has close to 300,000 members across Canada, so it is a national organization. It's a huge voice when it comes to advocacy. They have a number of chapters across Canada. So chapters are an individual type of a thing. They tend to take on their own personalities, and it just depended on the people that are in the chapters. But of course, there is the national variety. Many people are CARP members, and they don't belong to a chapter. So with CARP, it's about individual members that are amongst the corporate partners. It could be discounts. It could be, I know there's a health wizard on the CARP website. Could be about chapters and corporate partners. So I just want to say a couple things about a couple of corporate partners, i.e. the Zoomer family. I wanted to mention these because the various issues involving the Zoomer family are probably more closer than one thinks. Now, Zoomer was, the caption of Zoomer was Boomers with Zip, so that's why it's called Zoomer. And just wanted to mention Vision TV. That's a part of Zoomer Media. So any of you that do get Vision TV that come into your home, you'll notice lots of CARP advertising on it. So they are a corporate partner. And next one, of course, is Zoomer Magazine. Zoomer Magazine you'll see on your newsstands and in the drugstores and that sort of thing. This is where I wanted to talk about Brian Adams. And Brian Adams has actually been with Zoomer Magazine for quite some time, for the last 2 or 3 years at least. And Brian Adams actually started out as the official photographer of Zoomer Magazine. He too is reinventing his life. So he's probably not going to be a rocker when he's 80 or 90 years old. He's reinventing his life as well. So there's many boomers out there who are really looking at, well, what can I do? What were my aspirations? And just how do I want to blend them with everything else that I do? Those of you that are familiar with Zoomer Magazine will notice that this month's issue, it's the latest issue, has a picture of Jan Arden on the front of it. And Brian Adams, of course, is the official photographer of that. And, of course, Jan Arden is on the centerfold inside as well. So it's a rather daring lot we are. And, I'm just so glad to have people like Brian Adams and the variety of different personalities that are a part of this Zoomer or Boomer type of, it's just the new vision. I just draw your attention to the ICAA, means International Council of Active Aging, and their website is up there. It was the 7 dimensions that we spoke about. They are a wealth, too, of information. They are international, just happen to be headquartered out of our own lovely Vancouver. So have a look at their website. There's some interesting things there. I wanted to put down to the Northern Health website. And I looked into the link on the Aboriginal Health. I did notice they talked about the holistic balance there as well, the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional type thing. But also they had something most interesting with the traditional medicine. So I was that was kind of an interesting thing. And last but not least, I just want to extend my appreciation, of course, for firstly the Demano Renewal Center for allowing us to do these workshops that I just spoke about earlier. I wanted to extend my appreciation as well to UNBC for being the first university in BC, maybe even Canada, to have this life skills course as part of their continuing studies program. An excellent little course for people such as myself, mature students, who want to have a designation. It's a nice little course. It's holistic. It's practical. Expensive, but it's a very nice little course. And, of course, I just want to say thanks to you all for being here as well. And with that, I'll just say back to you, Stacey, and thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rita. We have time for a few questions for Rita if anyone has any about any of the information that she's presented. You can use the chat feature again to type in questions, or you just hit *6 to unmute your line if you'd like to ask a question. And maybe while people are thinking about that or giving people a couple of minutes, I'll just ask a quick question, Rita. I'm quite curious about this whole tagline for CARP, A New Vision of Aging, and you've spoken a bit about how this whole idea of Zoomers, but I'm curious to hear more. How do you think the vision of aging is changing or has changed? Could you speak to that?
Basically, in the time that I have been involved for the last 3 years, it's, as I say, it is in a transition. And when I first came on board, it was CARP, the New Vision of Aging. And, you know, as because it's got a different person at the helm of it than was 5 years ago. So as I say, the transition is there. And it tends to be a little bit flexible just because as we go into this new vision, and that's why the acronym has changed a couple of times as well. So as we go into this new vision, and polls and that sort of thing are indicating, well, maybe something, you know, would work better. So that's why I gave examples of two, the Canada's Association for the 45 plus, and also a New Vision of Aging. And also just wanted to let you know as well that there is no age limit for people to become a member. Some of the youngest members of CARP are actually in their teens, and that is just because they care very much about maybe their grandparents or their parents. And so basically it's very holistic, and just it's for anyone who, and more people of different, whether they be family members, professions, that sort of thing, are coming on board. And the more people and the more interests that come on board, things tend to change a little bit, because that's the place CARP is at right now. Does that answer your question?
That gives me a sense of where CARP is coming from, and interested to hear also from folks on the line their impressions about, more generally in society, is there a new vision of aging and how has that shifted? And Rita, I'm thinking you spoke about the workshops that you are offering and exploring, I'm imagining, these different components of healthy retirement. I'm curious what you're seeing out there. How is that shifting? Are people interested in exploring different aspects of retirement than maybe they did historically or that we would typically think of? What's your personal experience with that?
Just in November, we did have a seminar, basically, and that's when we actually launched the new phase of retirement. And basically what I did find, we had some community speakers there, and those community speakers were basically people in their 70s that, you know, had still some engagement of the workplace. They're people that are quite well known around our region here. And what I did find was those people in their 70s and or 80s were interested, because those of us that are younger, of the boomer variety, that we like to hear what they say. We like to know where they come from and why they're 70 and 80 and doing what they're doing. And so those types of things are very inspiring. And so we look for people like that. It's the people that are of the boomer variety that, you know, they don't necessarily want to do the traditional, what they call retirement and disengagement. And then we look to those people that are older and haven't traditionally retired or disengaged, and to use them as a role model for us. And that's what I'm finding from the boomer generation and the people in the 70s or 80s. That's the common link that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments coming up in the chat box here acknowledging some of the pieces that you're just speaking to about how we're seeing people working later in life, working into their 70s, and this idea that the new 60 is 50. How does it work? The new 60 is the new 50 or something like that.
60 is the new 40.
60 is the new 40. That's how it works. Also, folks on the chat are just sharing some other resources, and this is great. Jill's put up a really inspiring video of Jane Fonda's video of aging, so you can access that there. And if anyone has resources that they want to share throughout the session, please feel free to add them there to the chat. Teresa, you also had a question specifically about the ICAA and CARP and how some of the supports they offer to professionals. Can you clarify your question there?
Well, actually, it was more of a comment that as I was listening to Rita's presentation, and we had agreed that Rita was going to talk about these organizations and what they would offer to individuals who are looking at retirement, who are looking at their own active aging. But as I listened to her presentation, it struck me that there really was information for professionals like community planners or policy developers that if, for example, if I'm a community planner and I want to plan my community so it is an attractive magnet for seniors, then looking at the ICAA 7 dimensions would really improve my planning. So I was interested in that piece, Rita.
I'd just like to speak a little bit to that. And with the ICAA now, I'm not a member of the ICAA. People, if one looks on the their website, they will see that corporations, they do sell memberships to business entities, and I think it's just a very exciting thing that they are there to help with the educational type thing. Also, there's a resource within CARP for, say, age-friendly communities and that sort of thing that, they do help with that. So ICAA is very much about, it's not for individual memberships, it's for businesses and anybody that may be interested in sort of restructuring what things are. It's an excellent piece of education. Their website is a wealth of information.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks so much. Are there any other questions for Rita before we move on? We have a couple minutes here. And I also just want to let people know there was a question from someone who had missed Rita's contact information. So I did just want to let everyone know that all of the presentations today are available on the BC Healthy Communities website for download. So that's just www.bchealthycommunities.ca. And also in our tabs here today on the webinar session, you'll see one of the tabs says Files. And any of the files that we're using, any of the presentations are available there. You can download them directly to your computer. So for example, the presentation that Rita just gave, including her contact information, you can just download that directly. Okay, great. Well, Rita, thank you so much. I think that was a great place to start with thinking about the big picture of retirement and healthy retirement and what do we mean by that? What are some of the components to consider? And what is this new vision for aging? What are some of the pieces we need to consider? And I also think it was a great lead into our next presenter, Jill Zacharias, who's the Social Development Coordinator with the City of Revelstoke. Jill has done a ton of work in Revelstoke around age-friendly planning at a community level. So really moving in now to the discussion about what are some of the community conditions that can support people as they age, and what are some of the things that we need to be considering. So Jill, I'll turn it over to you. We are just uploading. For some reason, our system today is a little bit slow in uploading the presentations. It's usually immediate, but I can see that the system's working hard to get it there, and your presentation will be there in just a minute. So I'll turn it over to you. Thanks, Jill.
Great. Well, that's fine, Stacy, because I'm going to talk a little bit first, just with the first slide up. And I really would like to thank BC Healthy Communities for inviting me to participate in this webinar. It really is important to look forward, both as individuals and communities. And so a few years ago, the Age-Friendly Cities Project was conceived at an international gerontology conference in 2005. And the World Health Organization took the lead. So basically the purpose of the initiative was to help communities plan how to become more accessible and inclusive for older persons by identifying features within their communities that could be improved. So all this was in recognition of the demographic shift or changes taking place throughout the developed world, and how important it is and will be for all communities to be prepared. We are all expecting an increase in the number of older people in our communities. So as a community, it's critical to look at this in terms of enabling your residents to be supported and to live out their lives in your communities. So we're talking about inclusion, and they're not a retirement community. People who are not attached to the community in terms of family or the mountain environment do tend to leave as they age. For one thing, we get last year, not this past winter, but the winter before, we got over 6 meters of snow in the valley. So you can imagine how that affects people in terms of getting around and just dealing with winter conditions. So in our circumstances, we want to stem the outflow of our retired citizens and remain diverse and inclusive. So perhaps the more we work at this, the more older residents will consider staying. So So the World Health Organization definition of an age-friendly community. An age-friendly community is a community where policies, services, and structures related to the physical and social environment are designed to support and enable older people to live in a secure environment, enjoy good health, and continue to participate fully in society. And they really look at 8 key features of an age-friendly community. Outdoor spaces and buildings, for examples of this are snow removal, sidewalks in good repair, good lighting, handicapped parking spots, automatic doors, just, you know, all around kind of the built environment supports accessibility. And in terms of this, I have on the left there, Spark BC, for community planners, Spark BC has put out an Accessible Communities Bylaws Guide that reviews planning, public facilities, parks, streets, parking, taxis, and gas stations, and all the rest of it. And it really is an excellent resource document. Transportation takes into consideration convenience, safety, enabling older persons to go wherever they need to or want to in the community. Examples are how good are your public transportation options, your paratransit options, are mature drivers workshops available in your community, that type of thing. Older residents need to have access to housing that is safe and affordable and allows them to stay independent as their needs change. So as a community, you need to work towards a full range of housing options or identify which specific needs aren't being met and work towards that. For social participation, that includes opportunities for developing and maintaining meaningful social networks within the community, things like that Rita was talking about, or a strong senior center, that type of thing. Respect and social inclusion encompasses the need for various aspects of the community, like public services, media, commercial services, to be respectful and willing to accommodate the diverse needs of older people. Our next presentation is Bob talking about the radio station is a perfect example of this. And one thing for the businesses in your community to consider as well is that as the baby boomers move into retirement, there are a lot of older tourists out there, and particularly with the economic downturn, regional tourism is probably your strongest market. So what types of tourism do older people enjoy? How can you build on this in your community? That type of thing. And on the right hand in the files there, I've also got an age-friendly business guidelines that was put out by the BC Seniors Healthy Living Secretariat, and it really is an excellent resource as well. Civic participation involves the inclusion of older persons in community decision-making processes. The best thing I've heard recently is that if you aren't going to, you're not going to get a piece of the pie if you're not at the table. Employment refers to opportunities for older residents not only to contribute their experience and skills through paid employment, but also through volunteer opportunities. And community and health services, it really is important to anticipate the potential needs that are going to be coming up in your community. For example, in Revelstoke, in the next 5 years, our 85 plus aged population is anticipated to increase by about 35 to 40%. So in Revelstoke, that's about 50 additional people. So this has ramifications on home support workers, community care nursing, assisted living, residential care in terms of employee recruitment and funding formulas for the number of beds. So as you can see, it really tries to encompass everything in your community from quite a broad perspective. So what we've done in Revelstoke, we're a very small, isolated community. We are going through a time of change as we move more to be a resort community. So In BC, UBCM Senior Housing and Support Initiative was created through the provincial government to assist local governments to prepare for an aging population. And in 2009, I obtained an age-friendly planning grant to complete an age-friendly plan for Revelstoke and area. So this is part of my role as social development coordinator to move forward on important social issues that have been identified as priority. And again, there's the age-friendly plan right here in the files if you'd like to download that. For us in Revelstoke, it was very good timing as our community was undergoing fairly rapid changes with the resort development. It really seemed that our older residents were being a bit left behind. It's really important for our community to remain inclusive, diverse, respectful of all residents, young and old. So many of Revelstoke's older residents have lived in Revelstoke all their lives, and some families have been in the area for generations. So, like I said, we're a small community, we're in the heart of the Columbia Mountains, and we are fairly isolated, particularly in the winter months. The nearest larger centers are Kamloops and Kelowna, which are both nearly 3 hours away. So the parameters of the UBCM funding focused our efforts on the social planning piece, which at that time was really important. The plan involved extensive consultation with the local seniors population and developed strategies to improve the age-friendly qualities of the community as a whole. So getting input from the seniors themselves was a really exciting part of the process for me, and one that I really enjoyed. The seniors seemed to be very empowered by the process. The main vehicle that I used for getting their input was both through consultation sessions at the local Seniors Association and a pretty comprehensive senior survey. And I went out to places where seniors lived and talked to them and distributed the survey far and wide, and we had a really excellent response. So the community consultation piece then feeds into the recommendations. So, for example, City Council needs to know that any recommendations aren't picked randomly from the air, that they have the weight of public opinion and experience behind them. And it's also very important to be realistic in your recommendations. The limited resources of, as we all know, of small municipalities and organizations really need to be taken into consideration. So again, this is part of building your community partners as well as implementing recommendations down the road. So I also talked to various managers of departments like Public Works and the planning departments and asked, is this feasible? Are we going to be able to work on this together? All this is critical to the long-term success of the plan. So in terms of implementation, we've worked on a lot of different projects, done quite a bit of implementation over the last few years with either myself or other city departments taking the lead. And everything that I personally have done has been in close partnership with our local Seniors Association. Other community organizations like the North Columbia Environmental Society and the Railway Museum have also been working on intergenerational projects and the like. So one of the first things we did was we produced a local seniors resource guide, which is also in the resource files in the sidebar there. So it was, it's like what things are important, right from caring for your grandchildren to kind of spam and scam awareness, that type of thing. We worked on a fun project, the Gritbox pilot project, to deal with icy sidewalks in the winter. That's in partnership with Public Works. We placed bright yellow grit boxes. They're distributed throughout the city, particularly at the main intersections downtown and seniors housing complexes. That's kind of self-serve. If you see an icy spot on the sidewalk, you spread the grit around. Those have been quite popular and are now integrated into the Public Works winter snow maintenance program. And one of the best things we've done was that I've been able to get funding together to hire a volunteer coordinator at the Seniors Center. And they have a small computer lab at the Seniors Center where volunteer tutors teach seniors everything from beginner basics to how to shop safely online to photo editing. And we've had tremendous success. We only have 5 computers in the lab, and we've educated over 250 senior learners in the past year and a half. We also, the volunteer coordinator also operates a volunteer transportation program. So this is where volunteer drivers take people to out-of-town medical appointments on the days when the Health Connections bus doesn't travel out of town and if the client has no other options. So this program has been incredibly successful and is building as we speak. And it's very neat because it's turned out that the most of the clients in this program are low-income people. So you can imagine for those people living in the small northern communities where you have to go to Prince George or Terrace or for specialist appointments and how difficult that can be with public transportation and whatnot. The volunteer driver program is pretty incredible, and it's working out really well. We just also started a yard works and snow shoveling program, and again, this is for people who want to remain in their homes, can't afford to pay someone, and we don't want to encroach on private enterprise, so again, it is for low-income seniors. So an unforeseen benefit of all this has been an overall increase in the Seniors Association membership. And the number of activities offered at the center, the number of volunteers supporting those activities, just having the volunteer coordinator in the morning has been huge. And we've been looking for a way to continue funding, whether it's a social enterprise like a coffee shop or a thrift store. But in our case, the Seniors Association just received an endowment. They inherited some money from a deceased member, and they've decided to put the majority of it away for the volunteer coordinator program. So that's really exciting because they've learned the value of having a staff person at the center. We've also had a speaker series at the Senior Center, just again really focusing on sharing information, everything from the early warning signs of dementia to representation agreements, and that's really around, partnering with other community organizations. And in the meantime, other city departments have been working hard to improve in other areas. We've managed to get some new subsidized housing units in town, which has made a big difference for lower income seniors. And hopefully in the fall we'll get another transit bus and we can rework the routes to be more convenient for everyone. So again, in the files on the side here, I've included kind of a list of everything we've done in age-friendly achievements. And at the end of the day, our goal has really been, once again, to enable older residents to live out their lives and be supported in our community. And I think for me, like one of the biggest, most exciting kind of benefits of all this has just been that increased level of engagement with seniors, and that just the senior center is just booming, that increased level of volunteerism, and now they've got like an exercise class and dinners out, and and just because as we move to a resort community where we do have lots of young people moving into the community, we want to continue to be able to really engage and value our older citizens as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Jill. Great presentation and overview of both the process and I think really specific examples of what you've been able to do in Revelstoke. And I think that many of the examples are probably very relevant to other communities that are on the line looking at it. And again, a northern or rural context, there's probably a lot of similarities. So we do have a couple of minutes if anyone has any specific questions for Jill. You can, again, ask them verbally by just unmuting your phone line, *6. Again, you can use the chat feature. And while we're giving people a couple of minutes around that, I'll just redirect people again to the files section. Jill has provided a number of really great resources, so you can download them directly to your computer by having a look there. And while we're giving people a chance to type in, I can see that some people are typing in some questions. I thought it'd be interesting to do another poll, again, using our little icon to raise your hand. How many people feel like their community is an age-friendly community? Use that little drop-down. Got one. Well, got a couple people. We're waiting for it. We'll give it a couple minutes here to see. So there's 3 people who've raised, 4 people raised their hand. They're coming in. 4 people raised their hand. And it's going up by the minute. So 5 people raised their hand. Can I invite anyone who's just offered that to share some of the aspects that you think make it age-friendly? Again, you can just either speak up on the line or feel free to pop those into the chat box.
Could I ask a question about the RIPBOX program?
Sure.
I think that's a great idea, and I'm thinking that would be something to take to the Prince George Council Seniors and City Council. Where did the funding come from?
Well, actually, Interior Health, so our regional health authority, through their population health division, had this really small falls prevention grant program. And so I kind of jumped on it and applied through that program to get some money together to purchase some grit boxes. And so, I mean, it was a very small upfront investment because basically the grit boxes themselves just cost a couple $1,000s. And then the key piece about that was partnering with our Public Works Department. So they maintain the grit boxes. They put in the sand that they use on the city sidewalks. And you know, they were afraid that there might be vandalism, people overturning the grit boxes, but we really haven't had anything like that. And you know, in fact, we've had requests for more grit boxes, if anything. So I think that the best thing to do is just keep your ears and eyes open for any grant opportunities that may arise. And I know that falls prevention there's a big movement in the health regions in terms of falls prevention, so we might see some more community grants coming out of that.
I think Prince George Council Senior, as a matter of fact, has a little bit of money for falls prevention, so you could use skates in downtown Prince George sometimes in the wintertime, so I think this is a great idea, and I'm going to try and pursue it if you don't mind.
Yeah, and it was based on a program out of Ottawa. So, you know, it was something that I just kind of happened on and brought to the community, and I know that it's caught the interest of a few different communities, so it'd be great to see it spread out there.
It certainly would be. Some seniors are afraid to go downtown in the wintertime.
I think that's a common issue, I think, in communities with cold climates. And Jill, we've had a couple of other folks with questions and saying they'd be really interested in hearing a bit more about the volunteer driving program as well. And so could you share a little bit more about that? There's a lot of interest on the line around that program.
Sure, yeah. So what we did is our volunteer coordinator developed the program, and we set quite specific criteria around like each volunteer driver has to provide a driver's abstract, and what we do is we, you know, so people have to register with the program. So both volunteers and clients have to register with the program. The Seniors Center was able to kind of very inexpensively add on to their insurance package so that the volunteer drivers themselves were covered. we were able to get a handicap parking pass from Spark BC for the volunteer drivers to attach onto their vehicle when they went on the trips. And we do have a contingency fund that pays for the cost of the vehicle. So the volunteer drivers aren't paid, but they do receive a small contingency depending on how far they go, whether or not they just go to Salmon Arm or Kamloops or Kelowna. And that basically covers the cost of gas and, you know, and like I said, a little bit of wear and tear on the vehicle. And so people have to book. It's like the Health Connections bus. People have to book at least 24 hours ahead. And yeah, and then the role that a volunteer coordinator plays is she not only does the registration for both clients and volunteers, but she coordinates the rides. So someone calls her, says, I need a ride next week on Tuesday. I have to be in Kelowna for this appointment at 11 o'clock. And then she organizes the ride from her end. So that's the critical role that the volunteer coordinator plays.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to move us along in just a minute here because I want to make sure we have enough time to hear from Bob as well, and then we'll have time again at the end of the panel to hear from each of our three speakers again. Just going back to the question which we originally asked around age-friendly communities and how many people thought they lived in an age-friendly community, we did get some feedback that some of the things that contribute to that people are seeing in their communities are active senior centers, having regular potlucks and meetings and bowling, so lots of social activities as well. And we've got just another comment here about, yeah, events, lots of events and programs, and in one community, a Healthy Communities Committee has put on a bunch of workshops around active aging, so that sounds like a great resource. Jill, thank you so much. Again,
you're welcome.
For everyone, Jill's put a number of resources online here that you can access. I also wanted to draw attention. I know we've got a couple of folks on the line from the Senior Secretariat who have a whole program to support age-friendly communities. And I wondered, Rosemary, if you are on the line, if you wanted to just share about some of the resources that you have coming out around case studies and profiling some communities around the province. So you just hit
Thanks. Rosemary here. Yes, we do have an age-friendly program, and you can find out about it if you go to the Seniors BC website and just look for the age-friendly communities link. There's a number of materials there, primarily directed at local governments. There's a local government kit that you can download or ask for online, and it covers everything that sort of a local government or a local champion from an organization might want to consider if they're starting an age-friendly program along the lines that Jill described. The grant program that she mentioned, it continued this year. We gave out another 52 community grants with our partnership with UBCM, and those hopefully we'll do that again in the fall. I don't know that that's true or not, but we'll hope. Keep our fingers crossed. And the other thing is a recognition program. This is the first year we're trying that. We're actually going to recognize some communities that have established or committed to some steps to do the kind of things, again, that Jill described, the commitment and doing an action plan and some implementation. So there were 9 communities applied, and we're just reviewing the applications now. So that's, again, to try and promote and encourage other communities to try some of this stuff out. We also have a database of initiatives, so if you are interested in looking for some examples in other communities, please contact me. All that information is on the Seniors BC website.
Thanks so much. That's fantastic. And Rosemary, you can feel free to just type that link right into the chat here if people want to access it. That would be great. So we're going to move along to our next speaker. Bob Doré is a retired person in Prince George who I think is going to share fantastic examples of how seniors have so much to offer and contribute to community through some of his own experience. Bob is the host of the local seniors program on the community radio station in Prince George, and he's quite active also with the Prince George Council of Seniors. So Bob, really looking forward to hearing about some of the things that you do to contribute to your community and some of the roles that seniors can play. So we'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Stacy. I'm glad to be here. When Teresa invited me, I thought, what a great opportunity to spread the word. But I'll show you why I'm not on television here with this first slide. Radio seems to be more appropriate for my looks. But I'd also like to thank you for applying the word fabulous to our radio show, which is called Senior Moments. I haven't heard that word used in that context so far. But it's, I should mention I have a co-host who is Sharon Hurt, and she's president of the Prince George Council of Seniors, and I'm the past president. So we've been working as a team for quite a while, and the show has become an extension of the Prince George Council of Seniors, which I will talk about in a few minutes. It's a kind of a unique organization. So let's go back to 1995. I worked for the federal government, and they came along one day and offered those of us that were at least 50 years old and had 10 years service early retirement. I didn't have retirement in mind at the time, but I thought, hey, that's not a bad idea. I could do something else for a change after 22 years. So I accepted the offer and some pension advantages and a fairly sizable chunk of severance pay. And when I retired at the end of June in 1995, I thought I still needed a job. I'd never been unemployed in my whole life, and in a lot of cases, men define themselves by what they do, not who they are. So at that point, I thought, well, I better find myself a job, and which I did. I took the summer off, and I went to work at a local computer store doing outside sales. And after I come to work just like the other job. So for the first time in my life, I quit a job, and took about 2 years off. I had some health issues in there. I had some lung surgery and quit smoking, and a lot of things happened to me. So after about 2 years, I was starting to feel that I needed something to keep my time occupied. So London Drugs was opening a new store here in Prince George, so I decided I'd apply for a job there in the computer department, which I did, and they were foolish enough to hire me, but this was part-time, 3 to 4 days a week, and it suited my schedule. Because in the meantime, I was involved with Northern Health in their NIC program, which is Nicotine Intervention Counseling Program, and we set up a what do you call it? A club. We called it the Gator Club, and it was Prince support for people who are trying to quit smoking. So that took up some of my time, and it was good for me because I was helping myself to stay off cigarettes. And as I look back on it now, after about 17 years, my motives for volunteering at first were a little bit selfish. I needed something to keep myself occupied, and I was looking after myself in a way. I didn't want to sit home and not be challenged. So, but as time has gone by, my view has expanded, and some of the things that I do as a volunteer are pretty important to the community and to the seniors in the community. So it's become less selfish now and more community-minded. I started out with the Council of Seniors. I just put the next slide up here. But I started out as a computer instructor. Somebody mentioned that they have a computer lab, and Council of Seniors has a computer lab with 6 or 7 computers in it, and they've been running lessons there for about 8 years. So that was my first job with the Council of Seniors. Eventually, they asked if I would like. Well, I was elected president, and I ran the place for a few years. Some of my other activities are up on the next slide here. First one should be the John Howard Society, Northern British Columbia, and the North Central Seniors Association, which is one of the senior centers in Prince George. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, my wife and I started a volunteer thing at the Prince George Equine Rescue Center. As you can see there, we take care of horses, and we go out there once a week and clean out the stalls and take care of pot-bellied pigs. The place isn't just for horses. They have dogs, cats, llamas, all kinds of animals that have been abandoned or mistreated by people. So during that time, I heard that that quote at the bottom of the page there, I heard that one and I thought that really applies. You still work, but you work at what you do when you want to do it, and you really don't have to worry too much about getting paid for it, because if your finances, luckily for me, my finances were in pretty good shape. I have some good pensions, so I could afford to do things that I wanted to do. And along with, being reasonably healthy still, it gave me an opportunity to do some different things. Like I said, I'm past president of the Prince George Council of Seniors. I do a lot of volunteer photography around town because I've gotten back into doing photography since the advent of digital photography. I started taking pictures when I was about 12, so I've been doing that for a long time. And some of the events around town, there's the Cold Snap Music Festival, which comes to Prince George every January, which is a series of entertainment, musical entertainment. July 1st in the park for Canada Day, lots of pictures to be taken there for the Multicultural Services Society. And it allows me to socialize, and it allows me to do something useful, and it's always fun. A few years ago we had the senior games here in town, and I covered a hockey tournament for a whole week, which was really great. So I get to do my thing, and I get to do something that helps out the community, I hope. The next slide, well, that's not helping anybody but me. I was on a cruise to Alaska, so I don't know if I should describe the drink in my hand, but it's called a Dirty Banana, so I'll leave it at that. You still can have a good time when you're 65 or over. And the slide and the picture don't really relate all that well now that I look at it, because we're talking about the Prince George Council of Seniors advocating for seniors. Issues like housing, nutrition, healthcare, prevention of elder abuse, fraud is another one, and I'm not sure what's behind that little box there. Oh, most importantly, having some fun. So along with all that stuff, there are other things that I'm doing, which I'll get to in a minute, but the Prince George Council of Seniors started in the 90s, early 90s, and it's an umbrella organization of about around 20 different organizations that have an interest in seniors issues, and we represent about 4,000 seniors in the Prince George area. And some of the organizations are, there's 5 senior centers in Prince George. They're all members. RCMP veterans and the Chaco Rotary, which their main priority is helping with seniors, or one of them. Gateway, which is a assisted living facility here in town. Retired teachers, retired federal government employees, provincial government employees, and so on. So over the last few years, we've developed a fairly good reputation with City Council. They're our landlords for our office, so they work in cooperation, and I can hardly wait to get in front of them and talk about this Gritbox thing. I think that's really great. We run a couple of programs of our own. One is the Meals on Wheels program, which we do to, if anybody knows Prince George, we do it in the Bowl area, which is the valley, and not quite the whole city, because we don't have the facility to get out too far into the suburbs. And we provide a hot meal 5 days a week for seniors for a reasonably good price. And the other program that we run are social outreach, which means we have volunteers that are willing to partner up with seniors that need isolation reduced or have issues that they'd like to talk to somebody, have a friend. And that works into our peer support counseling program, which is a program that we started about 2 years ago. And the people the peer supporters are trained. It's a 50-hour course, and if someone has an issue that they want to talk something, get issues off their chest, we're there to listen and to help out. So that's a lot about the Prince George Council of Seniors, but there's more. If you look at the next slide, we do the opposite of Meals on Wheels. We do Wheels to Meals, which we did until our van broke down, so we could use contributions to get the van repaired if anybody's got any spare cash out there. And it basically addresses the need to socialize and to reduce isolation. Now this next slide, bull riding doesn't have a whole lot to do with seniors, but it does in the fact that it's an artistic and creative outlet for me and for a number of people. We have a photo club in the North Central Seniors Association that meets once a week, and we compete in photo contests and so on. So again, we're being challenged, and we're using our brains to the best that we can. Along with that, does that quote come up here, Teresa? I'm just looking. There's a quote on my sheet here that's not on this slide that's showing, but it says, everything from mucking out horse barns to meeting with politicians. There are some that would say that there's not too much different in these two jobs. Anyhow, I try to get a little bit of physical activity. I'm not famous for being keen on exercise, but I do Tai Chi a couple of times a week. And the PG Equine Rescue Center is a workout when you're handling 1,000-pound horses and moving them around and so on. But getting back to the skills, you can develop your own skills that you have or develop new ones. And I've been, like I said, been doing photography since the age of 12, but with the advent of digital photography, it's a whole new ball game, and something to learn again, using your brain. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I'd be hosting a radio show. That's something totally new, and it was a learning curve. We've done about 14 or 15 episodes now, and I think we're just getting to the point where we're pretty much competent. And it all comes together after a while. Things like the Council of Seniors, the radio show. When you walk downtown, you see people, and it all sort of ties together at some point. And I'm not quite sure how that happens, but I guess it's just from staying with it. And my motivation has become considerably less selfish. Excuse me. So I did talk about the multicultural thing. This is the celebration in the park on July 1st of Canada Day, and the Cold Snap Music Festival. So we'll get down to another slide here, which is all about the radio show. And I've talked a bit about it, but in this picture you'll see that the two people here are president and vice president of the Heart Pioneer Center, which is one of the centers in Prince George, so we had them on so they could promote their activities. Sharon has her back to the camera here, and back in the background is Reg, who's the operations manager, so he directs traffic for us. And Reg and I worked together at London Drugs quite a few years ago, and it was always his ambition to have community radio in Prince George, and over the years he worked hard at it and he made it happen. And then when I retired from London Drugs, I told him, I said, you know, we should do a seniors radio show. And he said, yep, and that's where it lay for about 5 years. And then he came back to the Council of Seniors, and we put it together, and we went on the air in January. And we try to tackle a lot of issues that are concerned to seniors, the usual ones: health, safety, fraud, safe housing, affordable housing, all that kind of thing. But we try not to be too serious. We had an interview with a gentleman who's been on the air in Prince George for quite a few years. His name is Ben Meisner. Some of you may have heard of him. And he's a kind of a politically inclined commentator, and he likes to stir up controversy. But he gave us some good advice. He said, the worst thing you can be is be dull. So we took him at his word, and we try to get in a little entertainment, music. We try to be funny sometimes. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But again, it's a challenge to my brain, and for sure, and to the other people that are on the show, and it's a lot of fun. One of the issues that we discussed with the Ombudsman when she was here was the lack of seniors. I thought there was a typo in there, but it's not. So we tried to make commentary that'll keep the government on their toes, and criticize when it's needed, and congratulate them when they do something good. And we're having some technical difficulties here, but I'll keep going. So as a result of the 3 minutes, okay, I'm just about done. As a result of the consultation with the Ombudsman when she was here, some things came through, and I think we had a small part in it, like the Seniors Action Plan, which I'm not too sure what that's all about yet, and also My Voice, which is a health planning book. And hopefully we'll see more programs as the boomer bulge comes through. The needs of our demographic is fairly straightforward and similar to some of the other things that I've heard today. Entertain, inform, educate, and be an advocate. On the next slide, we talk about a sense of humor. This is a crib tournament at a local senior center, and we have get-togethers for breakfasts. We have a number of programs that help seniors not only get well-nourished, but have fun. There seem to be a lot of pictures of people eating in this presentation, but this was a Christmas party, and people enjoying some fellowship and some food. Okay, the last slide, I think, second last slide, talks about the one that I didn't hit the button for. There we go. If you look at the website here, www.senior-moments.ca, if you go to that website, you'll find all of the programs that we've done so far recorded and up there for download. We've got some video that Cable 10 took and while we were on the air, and some pictures of the people that are doing the show. So you can go there, you can make comments. My son-in-law put this website together for us, and I'm grateful to him. If you want to listen live, here we go. Here's the commercial for Senior Moments now. If you want to listen live, you can do it on cfisfm.com and at 1 p.m. on Tuesday afternoons. I'd also like to mention www.pgcos.ca, which is the Prince George Council Seniors website. And the last page talks about the Prince George Council Seniors. We're located at 1055 Fifth Avenue. We have a seniors phone-in. Whoops, what happened there? Okay, somebody moved those slides around on me, I guess. This is the last one. Got the phone number, 10 to 3 every day, Monday to Friday. And the biggest part of the inquiries that we get pertain to seniors' health and housing concerns. So it's a unique organization, I believe, and maybe even in North America, because I don't know of any other umbrella organizations that include all the other seniors organizations and try to advocate for seniors. And I guess on that note, I'll stop talking.
Bob, thank you so much. I don't know how you managed to pack all of that in. It's so impressive to look at all of the things that you're involved with. And I think what struck me is how, how in your retirement you contribute so much to community, but what I also sense that through being involved in the community, it also really fills you. Is that true?
Oh yeah, for sure. I can't see sitting at home in the traditional kind of retirement mode, I don't know, watching TV all day. I'd go nuts, you know?
Absolutely. Well, we did have a couple questions about accessing the radio station and the show. So
sure.
Again, that's sounds like through the website is the best way for people to access that. And
yeah.
And it's 1 p.m. on Tuesday that it's live, is that correct?
That's right. So the one website is cfisfm.ca, and it's live on 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. And then www.senior-moments.ca. That's where it's kind of like an archive of all the shows we've done and so on.
Fantastic. That's great. So
okay.
Any quick questions for Bob? We're going to move after this to a more general discussion and dialogue with the group. But if there's any specific questions for Bob, please keep that now. Okay, great. Well, a big thank you again to all three of our speakers. I think it's, as I anticipated, I think this has been a really interesting mix, starting out talking about kind of the big picture, what is this new vision of aging, and what would a more comprehensive or holistic approach to retirement be, and what are the components we consider there. And then with Jill's presentation, looking more at the community conditions for supporting people as they age. And then Bob, I mean, you're just a brilliant live example of really taking advantage of the community conditions to move into a healthy retirement and really embrace that. So thank you so much to each of you. We wanted to move into a discussion with everyone now. So I'd like to open up the floor to any questions you have for any of the speakers or any of the other participants on the line if there's any specific questions. Again, just *6 to unmute your line, or you can feel free to type into the chat feature at any point. Any general questions before we dive in? We've got a few questions that we thought would be interesting to discuss as well.
Could I just ask a question of Jill? It's Sue Lawther here.
Please go ahead.
Sure.
Thank you. Jill, we're in Whistler, and one of our biggest, not battles, but challenges to aging in place in our community is getting people to recognize that they are indeed aging. We have an incredibly active population here, as I'm sure you do in the Revelstoke area, and I'm wondering if you have any tips or any hints as to how we can help people sort of recognize that they are going to need services, they do need to do some planning, and they do need to think about how they're going to age in place in their community without sort of hitting them over the head and dragging them into presentations.
Well, I would suggest rather than presentations, actually asking people what they think they need. So starting that, like really, like sometimes you might almost have to do it by invitation, or you get people who are older and who are already community leaders to really put out the call. And so I think the most important starting point is getting that dialogue going. So, you know, so you're asking people to think about their future, but also to look at their needs now. And is the community meeting their needs?
Right. Yeah, we've run a couple of surveys. We've had most recently a fairly successful town hall meeting, but it seems to be hitting, we have about 1,655, according to the 2006 census, we have about 1,655 seniors. We seem to be hitting the same core group of about 200 seniors. It's very hard to engage the other 1,400, so I was just wondering if you had any tips on that.
Yeah. I mean, all I can say is that you just need to try and go out through the existing networks.
Right.
And I know it's like, for example, in Revelstoke, we have, you know, say 350 people or nearly 400 people who are members of the Seniors Association, but we have a couple thousand seniors in our community. So, you know, again, that's like we have 85-year-olds who think they're not old, you know.
We have a lot of similarities, which is why I asked if we could chat offline later.
Yeah. So I guess that if people aren't coming to the table to have a piece of the pie, you know, there's only so much you can do, really. Yeah. And I think that, you know, one of the questions that we asked in our senior survey is, do you intend to stay here for another 3 years, another 5 years, for the rest of your life? And so you really need to get a sense of, are people, you know, as they age, do they want to leave Whistler, or do they want to stay? And if they do want to stay, what might their needs be? Yeah. So, you know, because I can imagine that people might leave as well, you know.
Very similar. Yeah, very similar communities.
Sue, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other people also saying they think that was a really important question. And Jill, I think your point was a really good one in terms of engagement practices in general. So often we can get in the habit of inviting people to our table and expecting them to come to our events, our presentations, our town hall meetings, rather than going out and meeting people where they're at, which is what I really heard you saying. And I know Rita has something she'd like to offer in this conversation as well. Rita?
Thanks, Stacy. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Okay, so yeah, that question about getting people to come to terms about, the whole aging factor. I had an interesting little visit with one of the young ladies down at Service Canada and telling her about this whole CARP Zoomer type of a concept, and she says, oh, gee, this is great. They really like to find a way for people or the boomers to come to terms with aging. What I see with CARP and the whole Zoomer philosophy and that sort of thing, targeting the 45 plus, is that, if there's a chapter in an area or maybe somebody wants to start a chapter with CARP, that it's an excellent way to sort of have events in the community to get people thinking about it and maybe get excited about some of the possibilities out there that they can be doing. So I just wanted to add that as well to, helping people to come to terms, because bottom line is people do like to have fun. They want to see what the possibilities are, and in many areas CARP does offer in their chapters and community, they do offer some really excellent fun things to do and to be considering that next journey of their life. Thanks.
Thank you, Rita. So I think that's a great lead into the first question that we have up here on the discussion screen, and Sue, I think you've sort of launched us into this around what are some of the specific challenges and opportunities for promoting healthy retirement and aging in place specifically in northern, rural, and remote communities. So you've given one example there, but I'd like to throw that out to our speakers and also to anyone else on the call. What do you think are some of the specific challenges and opportunities in this kind of more northern or rural or remote context that need to be considered? And Jill, I mean, you've shared a bit about some of the context in Revelstoke. Is there anything you'd like to add based on your experience about what were particularly important to consider in a more rural community?
Well, I think that, the kind of the funding formulas that the health authorities have in place for assisted living and residential care facilities, I think it's in small communities, it's really challenging for example, if there's wait lists. Like, for example, with our assisted living facility here in Revelstoke, it's quite small, and so is the wait list. The wait list is quite small, but it's not so much the number of people who are on the waiting list, it's the length of time they're waiting to get into assisted living. And so unfortunately what tends to happen is people go from living in their homes to residential care when all of a sudden they need care 24/7, and there's this kind of transitional period when they're actually hospitalized until a bed opens up in residential care. So I think it's going to be very, very challenging as we see an increase in the much older population for small communities to continue to really make their voice be heard with the larger regional health authorities in terms of really being able for people to be able to stay in their communities when they need either assisted living facilities or residential care.
Thank you. Bob or Rita, anything you'd like to add around specific challenges or opportunities in this northern or rural context?
Yes, it's Rita here. So basically, some of the specific challenges is just, I think, about communicating with each other and just sharing with each other some of the things that we are doing. And I want to speak specifically about the sort of the boomer component, those people between 45 and 65. One of the things that we did last year wasn't so much about how to manage diabetes, but it was about prevention. So that, those people in that 45 to 50 age that are maybe thinking that, adjusting their lifestyle might be a good thing, to start doing that. And it was amazing. We had some people there in their 50s who maybe realized they were carrying an extra 15 pounds around and didn't want to start becoming diabetic. So it caused them to take action on that and lose that weight. And the one person that I'm thinking of, he now rides up University Hill here on a daily basis and thinks it's quite a lot easier when he's 15 pounds lighter. I just wanted to mention that.
As far as reaching out to the community, the Council of Seniors and the communities, the local center that I belong to have tried a number of things. We got a grant from the Prince George Community Foundation to do some advertising, We got a hold of one of the local Save On Food stores here, and they let us set up a table at the entrance to the store and recruit members. And some of there's local newspapers let us advertise for free. They have coming events and stuff like that, so you can take advantage of that. Plus, we've got a good relationship with the person that covers the seniors on the Prince George Citizen, so we get a fair amount of coverage that way as well, but it might be slightly different in a smaller community. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, and Prince George obviously has a very active seniors association. I'd be curious again just to do a quick poll using just raising your hand. In your community, how many of you have, that you know of, active seniors associations? So you can just use that little drop-down menu here. Just going to give people a minute to type in. So about 4 people have raised their hands. So I'm seeing that some communities, yes, do, but many communities, it appears, do not necessarily have a really active seniors association. And that probably has to do, I'm guessing, also with size of community. I mean, Prince George is obviously a northern community, but quite a large one. Maybe some of the smaller ones may not have as many active organizations and seniors, rural seniors organizations. Also just have a note here from Rosemary about a program for rural and remote communities. Did you want to speak to that specifically, Rosemary? Just give you a minute to unmute your line. It's *6.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. It's Kim here. Rosemary has had to leave.
Hi, Kim.
There's a guide out there that was produced about 5 years ago for age-friendly, and it's a rural and remote community guide, and there's a link on the chat that is quite useful to getting dialogue started for communities that want to start age-friendly.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'd love to hear from others about this question about the specific challenges or opportunities in northern or rural communities. Any thoughts from that from anyone on the line? How is this different from being in a city or being in the South?
I have a comment about that, is that being in the north, we seem to be the forgotten people up here. We have to fight harder to get funding, and with the main population in the lower mainland, they seem to get most of the attention. So that's one of the issues.
Yeah.
It's Teresa here. One of the things I've observed, and it was interesting listening to Jill talk about doing a very comprehensive survey, my experience has been if you can get seniors engaged and involved and they actually believe that the action is going to make a difference, everybody gets involved. And I remember we were doing a survey with the Prince George Council of Seniors a number of years ago, believing in participatory action research, where everybody designed the questions. It was the most interesting survey I've ever actually seen, with some very interesting choices for responses. And we were trying to figure out what would indicate a good level of return, or, percentage. And people sitting on the council pointed out that if we took it into certain communities, it would have to go to everybody, and everybody would answer it, because that's how the seniors were in the smaller community. They were so well connected with each other that if one got the survey and another didn't, there would have been, hell to pay, if you like.
Where's my survey?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the flip side, I think, for the more rural and remote and isolated communities, is that if you can get the seniors engaged in doing it themselves, my goodness, they do tremendous work.
That's right. I'll agree with that for sure.
That's a great example.
Well, and that's like when people are, one of the really empowering things when we did the survey in the Age Friendly Plan was just that, people then saw their responses and their issues kind of in the Age Friendly Plan, so they felt that they were being listened to, and that was very, very empowering. And when people provide input and feel listened to and then feel empowered, then their chance of actually being engaged and participating in other things is so much greater.
It absolutely is. And I think one of the things, in the more mainstream we might forget is that our seniors are very smart and very experienced. And I think sometimes we might fall into a trap of stereotyping. And I think you're absolutely right. When you do good research, the kind of research that involves people, and they see themselves and their issues, they're not only able to contribute to a really rich understanding of what the issues are, they also are really very sure on what's going to work as solutions. And now they have ownership, and they're going to be watching to make sure that the solutions they envision are part of the political landscape.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those examples. I think it's a great lead into the third question that's up here around examples of successes and barriers to increasing involvement of seniors. And I think you're really speaking to some of the considerations around process. How do we engage and how do we involve, and not to make assumptions there. Other thoughts from people on the line, or specific examples you'd like to share from your community of things that have either worked really well in terms of increasing involvement of seniors or connecting with seniors, or challenges or barriers that you've had? I'd like to throw it open to anyone, or any three of our speakers if you'd like to share any other specific examples.
Well, I think that the whole concept of people, that we can't make assumptions, right? Because people are healthy so much older than they used to be, and they don't feel old. But even having said that, so they're still in a time of their lives when they're not working or whatnot. And, that challenge to increasing involvement, it's like, well, I don't want to be part of the Seniors Association. I'm not a senior, even though they're like 75 or 80 years old. But what are they involved with? Is it, my mom and dad, for example, are really active in Provis, or in the walkie-talkie hiking group, or they have, kind of professional associations that they still associate with even though they're retired. And so, I think it's trying to go through those organizations or even ad hoc groups that are already in place and say, I know you may not think about this now, but we really need your opinion. Your input is important. And really trying to say how much you value that. Really, the only thing really you can do.
Thanks for that, Jill. And what I also heard in that, in terms of connecting through existing organizations, is while for some people associating with specifically a seniors organization, they might relate to that. Others might not, and it might be actually through activity-based organizations. It's not age-defining organizations. Has that been true in your experience?
Yes, and but at the end of the day, it's it's challenging to get to the isolated people and whatnot. But you can only, like I said, you can only do your best and just try and promote that healthy engagement and carry on.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me adding, one of the other things is actually, it's like holding up a mirror to the senior, to the person themselves. And I remember we were putting together, I was working with the Prince George Council of Seniors, putting together a presentation to the local MLAs, and they all agreed that a certain woman who was a member should actually speak. She should tell her story. And I don't think she'd ever done anything like that before, but she was given so much support. And she had the most eloquent and moving and powerful speech and story that she gave at the beginning, and it shifted the entire room. So sometimes our best needs to include things that we might not think of, which is about saying, we know you can do this. And I'm sure Rita won't mind me saying this was big for her. She did not know how she was going to talk to somebody without seeing a face. She hadn't done PowerPoint before. So it is about saying, you've got this far, you've probably tackled things a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah. And I'd just like to add to that as well, and this is Rita here speaking in Prince George. I was reading the International Council of Active Aging's website, and they are very much about education. And one thing that did jump out on me on their website is about being very careful upon addressing anybody that's under 75 as being a senior or not, because some people don't feel comfortable with it, and so it's being respectful of that as well. And somebody made a point here of not talking about the age so much, but inclusive intergenerationally, and I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'm aware of time and want to draw this conversation to a close. And Bob, did you have some closing thoughts around this as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say that you don't need to emphasize the senior aspect. You make it more social. People like to socialize, right? So play cards, get together for coffee, whatever. You can start working at it from that level.
Thank you. Well, I want to again extend a huge thanks to each of our speakers for today and all of you on the line for participating. I think it's been a really interesting conversation, and as I mentioned, all of the presentations are available right here on the screen under the file section. You can download them, and if you don't have a chance to do that and want to refer back later, they're also on the BC Healthy Communities website. I do want to let you know that following this session, we will send out a very short little feedback survey. We really appreciate hearing your feedback about these sessions. It helps us to improve them, and so if you don't mind taking it, it's really about 2 minutes to just let us know what you thought of today and any thoughts you have for any future sessions. We'd really appreciate that. And Teresa, I'm wondering if you have any closing thoughts or comments for today.
Well, to thank everybody, the reality is that this is, like many of the issues we tackle on our webinars, this one isn't going away, and it's going to need all of our best thinking and our willingness to collaborate and innovate. And if I was thinking of 2 words to use for addressing our seniors and that sector of our population, they have so much to teach us that, and as far as I have been concerned, it's also been a lot of fun. So I think that our webinars are something we would like to keep going. So we do take the evaluation very seriously, and certainly it's one of the places where we begin to glean ideas for what
people have a wonderful day, and we hope that we'll get to talk to you again in some future sessions. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank